In this video, we're going to try to answer the question, what is a good career to pursue in the future? So keep in mind that old ancient battle of inflation versus wages. Let's do a quick recap on both of these. So inflation is the idea that the same money buys less over time, and wages are what workers make for their paid duties. And when it comes to you, you want your wages to outpace inflation over time. And when that happens, like in this example right here, so if inflation goes like this and your wages go like that, your buying power is going to look like that, and that is the scenario you want to be in. So now let's go ahead and look at this question. How do you find a career where you have a good chance of wages outpacing inflation? And let's go over that real quick. So it really comes down to two things, and you might have heard of these before: supply and demand. So a quick definition I'm going to give for supply is the supply is how readily available something is, and demand is going to be how much people or businesses want or need something. So if you have high supply, that means that there is a lot of whatever the asset, skill, or product is already available. So think about something like toothbrushes, plenty of toothbrushes, toilet paper, even TVs now. You can go buy a TV pretty much anywhere, and stuff like apples. You go to a grocery store, there's not going to be any shortage of apples. Low supply is going to be when there is a little bit of whatever the asset, skill, or product is already available. So think about stuff like airplanes. There's a limited amount of airplanes, high functioning electric vehicles, people who can bowl a 300 consistently, and robots that can do the same type of things that humans do. That's going to be all things that are in very low supply. Now let's look at demand, and let's first look at high demand. So high demand is when there is a lot of people or businesses who want a skill, asset, or product. And so think about something like pizza. Pizza is high demand. Many people want pizza. Smartphones, almost everybody in the world today now wants a smartphone. Electricity, there's always going to be high demand for people to have lights on and power running, and then running water, warm showers, stuff like that. Very high demand stuff. Low demand is when there is a small amount of people or businesses who want a skill, asset, or product. So think about stuff that becomes outdated over time. So think about stuff like a fax machine, a CD-ROM, triple beam balance, because now they have digital scales, and a beeper or pager, because again, we have smartphones. So there is just not that many people out there with high demand for those products. So when it comes to careers or jobs where wages typically outpace inflation are careers with low supply and high demand. So low supply and high demand jobs usually get you the highest wages. So let's look at it in a chart right here. So if you have supply of a job like this and demand like this, the bigger that gap is, that means that your wages are going to be higher than average, and the bigger that gap becomes, the higher the wages will be. Because when you are in a career with a high demand, but there is not very many people who can do that job, the wage of that job will be much higher than the average job. So let's look at another example here. What if supply and demand are equal roughly for the job? Well, again, in this scenario, that means that the wages of that job will be around average. So when you're in a career or job where supply and demand are roughly equal, that job will pay roughly what the average national wage is, give or take some more or less. So let's look at the last example where supply is high for a job and demand is low. So in this scenario, that means wages are most likely going to be lower than average. And so when you're in a career with a low demand and there's a lot of people who can do that job, the wage of that job will most likely be lower than the average national wage. Again, not always, but that is consistently usually true, but not always. So let's look at high demand, low supply jobs and just jot down some notes here. So typically, these are careers that take a long time in the schooling or learning stage. And the reason for the low supply is that the training takes many years, which eliminates many potential candidates. And usually these are going to be in fields that are going to be around for many years to come and are hard to replace either by employee or by technology. So again, read this line again. There are going to be hard jobs to replace by either another employee or by technology. So let's look at 3 high demand, low supply jobs. And we're going to look at an airplane pilot, an advanced computer programmer, and then the key is advanced computer programmer, and then a doctor or surgeon. So these are careers where the training process and just learning the skills you need takes a very long time. So you can't just step into this tomorrow. It's going to take many years. So pilot, for instance, You have to have 1,000 hours of flying time. You got to pass multiple tests, and this training process is very long and stressful. To be an advanced computer programmer, it takes years to be able to learn and program these hardest base languages in depth, like Python, Java, and C++. So again, it's going to take a long time to develop those advanced programming skills. And then a doctor, medical school is 10 plus years for most people. You got to have these consistent tests, and it's a very stressful learning environment as well. And you also then, once you finish your medical school, you have to put in your years of residency. So the whole process takes over 10 to 15 years for most people before you can even enter the field. So again, that's why these jobs, these three specifically, they pay all very well because they're very high demand, but because of the lengthy training process, there is not that many people who can do these currently. So that's just something to think about. So here's another note too, is that picking a career really is not all about finding the highest wage, but when you are thinking about a career, it is important to ask these questions, and there's four of them I'm going to ask here. So is this something that will be needed in the future? Is this a job that will be replaced by technology or AI in the future? How long will the schooling or training take for this job? Like some people just don't want to go to school for 10 years, and so you're going to eliminate doctor because I don't want to go to school for 10 years. And finally, is this something that I would somewhat enjoy doing or at least would tolerate? Again, the statistics say that most people do not love or enjoy their job, but it's important to find something that you at least would tolerate. So when you ask yourself all these questions and you think you may have a career path, again, you also want to make sure that it's a career path where it's going to at least stay steady with inflation, so your buying power stays steady, if not increase, and you're not losing buying power over time. So one last thing I'll say is nobody knows what career path is best for you, but it is important to think about things like this as you get older. And so three more things I'll leave you with is that you want to think about jobs, careers, and businesses that will still be around in the future. And then you want to think about a job that you could at least tolerate and maybe even enjoy. The enjoy would be a nice bonus, but something you can at least tolerate. And then think about careers where your buying power at least will remain steady to what it currently is. So obviously, I am not some oracle of the job market. It's very hard to predict out all these things, and nobody will know what's better for you in a future career path for you more than yourself. These are just some things you can think about when you are pursuing this. And that's all I got for you. Have a nice rest of your day.